I invited you on the occasion of what's happening, all the tragic events happening in Europe today. Europe is faced with the worst crisis after the Second World War, okay. And your country is among the first countries that deal with the consequences of what's happening in Ukraine. You're receiving a huge number of refugees and you're coordinating, let's say, the humanitarian aid to the refugees. What's the numbers you have before you today?
Well, the situation is getting more and more difficult and complicated, and the Polish borders, and as you mentioned, it's not only a Polish border, of course, but we have the refugees, people escaping from Ukraine at the moment, and the border with Poland, Hungary, Moldavia, Romania, and Slovakia. And today, the number that I received just before reaching your television station was about 575,000 refugees since the first day of the Russian invasion. So more or less we can talk about the numbers of 90 to 100,000 a day. And as you mentioned, we can openly call it a humanitarian crisis that we are facing, and our government is doing everything to handle it properly. There is humanitarian aid organized in different aspects, in different ways. We have the humanitarian aid by the Polish government. We have so far 25, if not 27 already today, reception centers. They are, of course, different places next to the border. So this is the help organized by the government. But what is amazing, and what I have to say and underline, and it's very incredible, is all the response of the Polish people. Polish people are taking cars, buses, they are going to the border, they are taking things, clothes, medicine, they are taking people to their houses, they are opening their houses, there's somebody's advertising.
So sheltering the refugees
yes.
in your houses at this time?
It's of course, there is a help organized, so they already have places organized by the government, special reception centers, as I mentioned. But apart from this, the reaction of people, the reaction of Poles, individual, they are trying to do everything to have these people, to make them feel at home, which is incredible. And yesterday, in his address to the Polish people, our president said a few words on that too, because he said, "Thank you very much for being like this. Thank you very much again for being so welcoming." So that's something that, as President Zelensky said, we will never forget, that you are receiving us in this tragic situation in such a way. There is also, to handle the situation, there is also now a legislation that should be passed soon, if not tomorrow, a special legislation on receiving the refugees from Ukraine that will help them in terms of schooling, in terms of finding the job, healthcare, and some social aid. We also observe something that is again important, and of course this is the engagement of the NGOs. There are many NGOs also on our website of the Polish Embassy here. We put some links, some addresses for those who want to join and to support, for example, financially, particular NGOs who are already dealing either at the border and helping on the spot, or sending money to some spots in Ukraine.
Politically speaking, would you say that Poland was in any way prepared for what happened in Ukraine and the consequences coming after that?
I believe that nobody was prepared for such steps by the Russian Federation, and we were all hoping for the diplomatic means and for the diplomatic talks until the very end, until last Thursday morning. I must say, we are absolutely horrified by the invasion. We condemn it, and we think it's the violation of the international order, as we all know, is the violation of the human rights. This is a barbaric aggression where you see the planes, tanks, you see the attacks on the civilians, on the shelters, on the orphanages. So this is something that nobody would imagine that will happen in the 21st century. Paradoxically, we can observe, I think, that this even more created solidarity between the European countries, because we are together. in this fight against we would say against the Russians. We are here also with the NATO that is strong, that is at the borders, and we are solidarious with our Ukrainian neighbors.
How would Poland discuss the situation, whether Russia would follow on this war and move forward against other countries in the neighborhood as well? There is talk, especially for Moldova, or
yes, of course, for the neighbors there, for the Baltic states, and I think that the invader, I could say, did not think that Europe will get so close together and that we will be united in opposing and in condemning what is happening. Apart, of course, from Europe, there is a great support from UK, USA, Japan, other countries. I don't want to mention, particular, but we are together in this war against humanity, as somebody said. One of the examples, of course, is the huge sanctions that were introduced within the European Union already concerning the SWIFT, concerning the airspace, and this is already a hard blow for President Putin and his people. But what will happen next? I mean, nobody knows. I think I wouldn't be, unfortunately, too optimistic, seeing how he behaves, and observing the next days, like even today, the bombardments around Kiev, and so this is very tragic. I think it's an imperialistic vision of the Russian president, and trying to, in a way, get back to the times when I was smaller, to the Iron Curtain, to the division, to this clear-cut division between eastern, yes, and western part of Europe, which we have been doing everything to avoid for the last more than 30 years. So how he will behave, we don't really. We cannot predict. I think what is important that we have to stick together. We have to be with Ukraine. We have to be with the Ukrainians, and we have to try to do everything we can to prevent the Russian Federation moving further, because of course now we are not to enter militarily, but we have to do everything to help Ukraine economically, military in the sense of providing the military equipment. That's what we know. What is happening already is the first time ever that the European Union is giving money for financing the military equipment, and of course diplomatically, but economic help and this humanitarian help, I think, are at the basis of what we have to do every hour now.
Okay, there is big discussion, Madam Ambassador, concerning the information coming from the borders, the Ukraine, and what is happening what is really happening, and what is the real situation there. What's your information, and how would you respond to that discussion?
I think it's all related, unfortunately, these days, because it's again a hybrid war, and there is a lot of disinformation in the media. There are many fake news, and one of the tools that is used, the important tools that is used by Russia, is the manipulation of the information. So we have to be very careful at what we look, with extreme caution. We should look at the media. We should check the sources to be able, the numbers, the pictures, the videos, because unfortunately it's not only against the image of Ukraine and Poland, it's again against all Europe, because then people start reading, having false information, and there is no situation that at the border somebody who is coming from Ukraine, fleeing Ukraine from the war, would not be let in by the Polish customs, depending on the originality of the country of origin, ethnicity. They are the refugees from the country that is in war.